by World Health Organization (WHO), every year 7 lakhs, more than 7 lakhs people die due to suicide, due to committing suicide. And suicide is the 4th alarming causes of death among young adults, both men and women. Isn't it alarming? Today we are going to talk about how to deal with or how to stay with someone who is suicidal or is having suicidal tendencies. Suicidal behavior or suicidal thinking in a family member is one of the most harsh and difficult reality that one can face. The family members feel so helpless and they feel so sad thinking about the person, that what kind of pain they must be going through, where ending their lives committing suicide seems like the only option for them. That's the most harsh, difficult, intolerable situation that family members have to go through, sometimes feeling quite clueless, sometimes feeling quite paralyzed, afraid. What if they say something and that triggers the person? What if their behavior triggers him or her? And a very common thought that comes to all the family members is, if their relation with that family member, if their love, their effort couldn't stop them from thinking suicidal or couldn't stop them from the idea of ending their lives, then what could help them? But that's absolutely wrong. The thought of suicide is not because of less love or less support. It can be for a multiple reason, or it can be a very inherent thought that individual comes up with. So in this situation, please do not hesitate to look for signs and symptoms in the family member. Give them the support, talk about the signs and symptoms, give them a lot of emotional assistance and report or take them to a professional to seek help. We can only help a family member who is going through such kind of suicidal thoughts with the partnership of a professional help. Symptoms that you should look for when someone in the family is suicidal. First symptom, which is physical, which includes lack of sleep, lack of appetite, and there might be a lot of fatigue that the person experiences, laziness. There will not be a lot of enthusiasm to do things, and the person might feel all the time very lethargic. The second symptom is emotional. If you see that the person is not happy or the person is not feeling in a good mood, and the person is seen to be sad most of the times, and the person is not wanting to go to work or education institutions if they are studying, if there is a low motivation, if there is low interest, and if we see that the person tends to isolate himself or herself in most of the situation, then that is again alarming signal that the person might be experiencing some kind of suicidal ideation or might be having suicidal tendency. The third point that we need to keep in mind is behavior. If we see there is a drastic change in the behavior, like the person might be crying most of the time, if we see there is a lot of crying spells, if we see that the person is talking a lot of negative things, there is a lot of pessimism, optimism is not there in the person, and if we see that the person is not being able to process a lot of things cognitively, there is a sort of loss of memory, the person is not able to follow instructions, the person is not able to interact a lot with people and is feeling a little lonely or wants to just sit alone and not interact with the whole family, then it's highly alarming to keep a check. Now, 3 guidelines which is very, very important for families residing with someone who might be experiencing suicidal tendency. The 3 guidelines are: talk about, ask about it. It's a myth that if we use the word suicide or suicidal ideation in front of someone who might be experiencing suicidal ideation, that might trigger them. That it's an absolute myth. Research in fact states or encourages us to talk about suicide. That will help them open up, that will help you understand where it comes from, why they want to take this drastic step, why they want to end their lives, or why they even think of ending their lives. So it is encouraged to talk about and take the word suicide, talk about why suicide, what are the risks, why it is good, bad, everything about suicide. Have a conversation with them. That will help them to rethink, and that will help them to understand that why this is maybe the worst possible strategy, or maybe the solution that they think that life is giving to them, but maybe this is not at all the solution, but there can be so many other solutions that can be applied. The next thing is get help. If you see any signs and symptoms, do not hesitate to just keep it to yourself. Go out, seek for help. Sometimes suicidal cases are also the byproduct of a lot of mental illness that people go through, in which depression is one of the leading mental illness, which has ended up to a lot of suicidal cases. So if you see that there is any kind of mental difficulty, emotional difficulty, or any signs and symptoms that you observe, go seek for help in the early stage. That will help them, and that has helped so many people to prevent from suicide, so go for it. The next thing is, what can you do? So whenever you see that there is a close friend or a family member is going through suicide, all you can do is sit with them, talk with them, and maybe sometimes give them a postcard or a card or something positive quote, so that they feel that they are wanted, there are people who care for them, so that gives them a purpose of living, right? And share your own problems, because that will also help them understand that it's not just them who is going through a lot of hardships, but there are so many people who is going through a lot of hardships and is dealing in their best possible ways, and there are so many people to help them. So these are the few things that you can do for people who is going through some kind of suicidal ideation. And also another important thing is, make sure that any kind of knives or ropes or maybe sleeping pills or other things which will provoke them or make it easier for them to take a step which is absolutely wrong. Just hide those things so that it's not in their vicinity, so that they cannot see that. Now we will talk about some of the do nots that you should remember when you are staying or dealing with someone who is suicidal. Do not talk about why they should not commit suicide. Do not give them a lot of reasons, or do not tell them that why suicide is bad. Just be very open. Just try to understand what is their emotion, what is their thought, and why this option. Help them to have a more a normal dialogue, or to have a conversation where you are able to understand, and maybe in that process their thought process changes when you will share your perception. But do not force them, or do not give them moral talks on why they should not commit suicide. And also keep the secrecy of their ideation. If they get to know that you're talking about it to the relatives or outer friends, that might be very, very difficult for them, and the trust will never be developed. So these are the few things that you have to keep in mind while dealing with someone. And most importantly, do not leave them alone. It is a major do not when you're dealing with someone who is suicidal. Always make sure that there is someone or the other who is there with them at any point of time. Do not leave them alone. And if possible, have a healthy routine for them, so that they are engaging in some or the other kind of activity, which will maybe very gradually help them deal with this, and maybe this thought will gradually go away.
Don't forget to like and share this video. For more such videos, do subscribe to the MFine channel and hit the bell icon to never miss any update.